There are moments in life when heaven goes quiet, when you pray and nothing moves, when you cry and nothing shifts, when you plead and God gives you silence. But hear me, God's silence is not his absence. His quiet is not his denial. Sometimes the greatest miracles are built in the dark, crafted in the quiet, shaped in the silence while you're wondering if he even hears you. If God is silent in your life right now, get ready. Because the silence of God is the construction zone of your breakthrough. When you step into a season where God goes silent, the mind immediately begins to panic. The heart starts to question. The soul tries to make sense of the stillness. But what most people never realize is that the silence of God is not an indicator that you've been rejected, abandoned, or dismissed. It is often the quiet staging ground of preparation, God working beneath the surface, behind the curtain, beyond your understanding, forming something in you and around you that requires silence, stillness, and secrecy. Silence, for many believers, becomes a test of identity. You start wondering, did I do something wrong? Has God forgotten about me? Did I miss the sign? Am I off the path? But the truth is, there are moments ordained by heaven where God must intentionally withhold communication, not because he is distancing himself, but because he is preparing you for what he has already decided to give you. Preparation requires concentration, and divine concentration often manifests as silence. Think about it. When a master craftsman is shaping a masterpiece, he is not talking, he is working. When a surgeon is performing life-saving surgery, the room is quiet. When a teacher gives an exam, they stop speaking because the test requires the student to reveal what they've been learning. When God is silent, it is not punishment, it is positioning. He is putting things in order. He is setting the groundwork. He is aligning resources, shifting relationships, orchestrating opportunities, and strengthening your character so that when the blessing comes, you are mature enough, stable enough, grounded enough, and wise enough to carry it without losing yourself. Many people crave a miracle but resist the preparation. They want acceleration without foundation. They want elevation without transformation. But God's silence is his way of shaping you without distraction. You cannot hear the blueprint being drawn, but it is being drawn. You cannot hear the scaffolding being built, but it is being built. You cannot hear the doors being carved, but trust me, they are being carved. God does not prepare blessings in noise. He prepares them in silence because silence protects the potency of what he is forming. If God showed you everything he was doing, you might panic, rush, or interfere in the process. So instead, he hides his hand while revealing his heart. He goes silent, not to starve you, but to steady you. This is why so many biblical figures walk through silent seasons right before their destiny manifested. Joseph heard nothing from God for years while he sat in a pit, a palace, and a prison. Heaven was quiet, but destiny was moving. Moses experienced decades of silence in the wilderness before God spoke through a burning bush. David endured long years of silence while Saul hunted him, yet he was being prepared to reign. Even Jesus experienced silence in the tomb, but in that silence, the greatest miracle in history was being prepared: resurrection. You must understand that silence is not the void before death. Silence is the womb before birth. It is the hidden place where God plants, protects, and prepares what he is about to reveal. But the difficulty of God's silence is emotional. Let's be honest, silence can feel like abandonment. Silence can feel like betrayal. Silence can feel like delay. Yet none of these interpretations are true. When heaven is quiet, you must remind your soul that silence is a strategy. God speaks when you need instruction. He goes silent when you need strengthening. He whispers when you need comfort. He withdraws noise when you need clarity. Silence is not a sign that God has nothing to say. It is a sign that he has already spoken, and now he is preparing you to walk out what he said. Whenever God is preparing you, he allows seasons where your prayers feel like they hit the ceiling. But understand this: God does some of his best work in the unseen. Think of a seed planted in the soil. Once the seed is covered, it does not see sunlight. It does not hear sound. It does not feel movement. It experiences darkness, pressure, heat, and isolation. To the seed, it looks like nothing is happening. But in reality, everything is happening. Roots are forming. Strength is developing. Structure is being built. If the seed could hear the gardener celebrating its future potential, it might burst prematurely. So the gardener stays quiet until the seed is strong enough to break through the soil. God is that gardener. His silence is his protection. He is preventing premature exposure while ensuring your roots are deep enough to sustain the fruit he is about to produce in your life. Every great blessing requires preparation. And preparation requires a season where God reduces the noise around you so he can increase the strength within you. Sometimes he silences voices, closes doors, removes people, delays answers, and blocks opportunities, not because you are being punished, but because you are being prepared. You are not being ignored. You are being insulated. You are not being denied. You are being developed. You are not being set aside. You are being set up. The uncomfortable part of God's preparation is that you usually don't recognize it until later. You only see the genius of God's silence in hindsight. You look back after breakthrough and realize, that silence saved me. That silence matured me. That silence protected me. That silence positioned me. You realize that the blessing didn't come because you worked harder. It came because God prepared you deeper. And without that silent season, you would not have been ready. So if you are in a silent season right now, if the heavens are quiet, if your prayers feel unanswered, if your spirit is reaching but not hearing, do not panic. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is getting you ready for what he has already written. He is shaping you into the person who can carry the promise. Silence is the workshop where great destinies are crafted. It is the cocoon where caterpillars become butterflies. It is the night before the morning. It is the stillness before the storm breaks in your favor. Don't curse the preparation. Don't despise the silence. Don't interpret quiet as rejection. Instead, recognize it as the holy hush of a God who is deeply invested in your future. He is not ignoring you. He is investing in you. He is not finished with you. He is forming you. And when the preparation is complete, when the timing is right, when the work is done, God will break the silence, not with a whisper, but with a miracle so powerful that you will say, now I understand why he was silent. He was preparing me for this. Silence has a way of unsettling the human spirit. It can make even the strongest believer feel vulnerable, exposed, uncertain. And yet, in the kingdom of God, silence is not emptiness. It is a womb. It is the sacred, hidden chamber where God forms miracles long before they ever touch the surface of your life. When God reduces his voice, when heaven seems to stop speaking, when your spirit reaches and finds no fresh instruction, it is not because nothing is happening. It is because something is being formed, and divine formation requires divine silence. Noise disrupts development. Voices interfere with shaping. Movement can damage what must be built in stillness. And so God takes you into the womb of silence, not to punish you, but to prepare the miracle that will one day emerge so powerful, so undeniable, that you will know it could only have been formed by God. Think of how creation itself began. Before there was light, there was darkness. Before God spoke, let there be light, everything was wrapped in stillness and void. Out of that quiet womb, the universe was formed. God did not begin with fireworks. He began with silence. The most powerful works of God often start unnoticed. A miracle is not born in the spotlight. It is conceived in secret, carried in silence, and revealed in God's perfect timing. When God is silent, he is doing more than you think, not less. He is constructing the unseen framework that will one day support the blessing you prayed for. Most people misunderstand silence because they equate it with inactivity. They imagine that if God is not speaking, he must not be working. But silence in God's hands is strategic. Silence is the shield around the seed. Silence is the protection around the promise. Silence is the environment where destiny grows limbs, strength, and shape. A baby in the womb hears muffled sounds, but not full conversations. The mother does not narrate every detail of the baby's development. She simply carries what is growing. In the same way, when God places a miracle inside the womb of your life, he does not give constant commentary. He carries you, he nurtures you, he protects the miracle as it forms in the dark where the enemy cannot interfere and your fears cannot sabotage it. We often want God to explain every step. We crave reassurance, we want updates, God, are you working on it? How long will it take? Are you still there? But God does not speak just to soothe us. He speaks to shape us. And when speaking would break the process, he chooses silence. Inside the silence, something begins to shift, not just around you, but within you. The miracle God is forming in the womb of silence is not only about what he will give you, it's about who you are becoming as he forms it. The silence forces you to develop trust, endurance, patience, spiritual maturity, and a deeper understanding of his character. Miracles are not formed only for you. They are formed in you. And you cannot develop God-sized faith in the noise. It grows in the quiet. Look at every miracle in Scripture, and you will find a silent season somewhere nearby. Sarah endured years of silence before Isaac. Hannah cried through silence before Samuel. Elizabeth bore decades of silence before John was conceived. Mary carried the Messiah in the womb of silence before anyone knew a Savior was growing. God formed every one of those miracles away from the crowd, away from noise, away from premature opinions, away from doubt-filled voices. The womb is a private place. The miracle begins in a concealed place because greatness needs protection in its early stages. If God exposed what he was doing too early, the enemy would attack it, insecure people would sabotage it, and fear would kill it. So instead, God hides it. He forms it where no one can see it but him. Sometimes God even hides it from you. You wonder, why don't I feel anything? Why don't I hear anything? Why does my spirit feel quiet? But a mother does not feel every second of growth inside her womb. She trusts the process even when she cannot sense movement. You must learn the same spiritual posture. Just because you do not feel God forming your miracle does not mean he has stopped. Quiet does not mean inactive. Quiet means intentional. Quiet means construction. Quiet means formation. What God forms in silence, he reveals in power. That is why the miracle born from silence carries a weight, a glory, and an authority that could never have been formed in the noise. When the time is right and the miracle has been fully shaped, God breaks the silence, not with explanation, but with manifestation. He does not come with a long speech. He comes with results. When God is building something that will change your life, he does not announce every step. He unveils the finished work. But while the miracle is forming, the silence can be uncomfortable. You might feel forgotten. You might feel overlooked. You might feel like your prayers are echoing into a void. Yet heaven is not ignoring you. Heaven is incubating you. The womb of silence is a place of transformation, not abandonment. Many times God silences distractions by silencing himself. When God stops speaking, it forces you to stop depending on emotional confirmations and start depending on his character. It shifts your faith from God, talk to me, to God, I trust you even when you don't. Silence is also God's way of resetting your internal environment so the miracle can grow. Noise from fear, doubt, people pressure, and insecurity creates instability. God quiets your world so that what he is building inside you can grow in peace. You cannot see the movement, but you will feel the impact when the miracle is birthed. The womb may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. The darkness may feel isolating, but it is purposeful. The quiet may feel strange, but it is where heaven does its deepest work. You cannot rush the womb. You cannot force early labor on a miracle. When you try to push something before it's fully formed, you endanger the promise. God knows the timing, the shaping, the strengthening. He knows how much pressure you can handle. He knows when the miracle is mature enough for manifestation. If God kept speaking, you might rush his plan, but silence slows you down. It forces you to yield. It teaches you to rest. God's silence is not meant to panic you. It is meant to posture you in surrender, patience, and expectation. Then comes the moment when God decides the miracle is ready. The silence breaks. The season shifts. The womb releases what it held. And you step into something so glorious, so miraculous, so divinely orchestrated that it brings clarity to every silent night you endured. You realize the silence was never empty. It was full of God's work, God's hands, God's plans, God's timing. And when the miracle arrives, you finally understand silence was not God withholding. It was God building. It was God forming. It was God preparing. It was God protecting. So if you are in a silent season, don't run from it. Lean into it. Recognize the holy hush as the atmosphere of miracle formation. God is not done. He is doing what only he can do, forming greatness in the hidden place. And when the miracle breaks the womb of silence, you will see with your own eyes what heaven was shaping all along. There are seasons in life when everything around you seems to stand still. Prayers feel unanswered. Progress feels delayed and direction feels unclear. You look for signs, for whispers, for movement, yet all you encounter is quiet. But what you may not realize is that in the quiet seasons, God is strengthening things in you that you cannot see. He is fortifying the foundations of your faith, maturing the roots of your character, and reinforcing the structure of your destiny long before you ever step into the blessing He has prepared for you. Quiet seasons are not empty seasons. They are strengthening seasons. Just because you don't see anything happening does not mean God is not doing something powerful within you. The problem is that as humans, we often evaluate our spiritual progress by external indicators. We look for open doors, answered prayers, visible movement, and tangible breakthroughs to reassure us that God is working. But God is far more interested in the inner life, the part of you that no one sees but Him. He knows that if the inner life is weak, the outer blessing will collapse under its weight. So He takes you into seasons of silence to build strength where it matters most. The strength God develops in the quiet is invisible at first, just like the roots of a tree. No one celebrates roots because no one sees them, but every storm will reveal their value. A tree with shallow roots might look impressive in summer, standing tall with green leaves and branches spread wide. But let a storm hit, and it falls because what was beneath the surface was never strong enough to hold what was above the surface. That's why God prioritizes roots over branches, leaves over fruit, strength over visibility. Before God elevates you, He strengthens you. Before He exposes you, He establishes you. Before He blesses you publicly, He builds you privately. Quiet seasons force you to slow down and sit with yourself. They make you confront your weaknesses, your fears, your doubts, your motives, and your unhealed places. When life is loud and busy, you can hide behind activity. You can distract yourself with noise, movement, and success. But when God brings you into a silent season, He removes your hiding places. He strips away distractions. He quiets the voices around you so He can deal with the voice within you. Not to condemn you, but to strengthen you to handle what lies ahead. God strengthens your faith in the quiet. When you cannot see the miracle and cannot hear the instruction, faith must grow deeper roots. You learn how to trust God based on His nature, not His noise, based on who He is, not what He is currently saying. Anyone can trust God when He's speaking loudly. Mature faith is born when He is silent. Quiet seasons teach you to stand on the word He already gave you. You begin to realize that if God said it once, He doesn't need to repeat it. His silence is not a withdrawal. It is a reminder that His word is still working. God also strengthens your identity in the quiet. When the applause stops, when people fall silent, when affirmation is removed, you're forced to ask, who am I without approval? Who am I without achievement? Who am I without progress? And in that searching, God roots your identity deeper into Him. You stop looking for validation in external things. You stop basing your worth on productivity or success. You begin to understand that your value is anchored in God's love, not your performance. This kind of identity strength cannot be developed in loud seasons because the noise masks your insecurity. Only silence exposes what needs strengthening. In quiet seasons, God strengthens your emotional endurance. Life is filled with challenges, disappointments, and setbacks. If you are emotionally fragile, every delay will break you. Every not yet will destroy you. Every challenge will discourage you. Emotional stability is not formed in excitement, it is formed in stillness. God uses silence to stretch your capacity, deepen your resilience, and develop emotional muscles that can withstand pressure. He teaches you how to wait without breaking, how to stand without wavering, and how to endure without losing faith. God strengthens your spiritual sensitivity in quiet seasons as well. When everything is silent, you begin to listen differently. You start paying attention to the subtle, the gentle, the soft movements of the Spirit. You learn to hear God in ways you never heard Him before. The loud seasons of life train your ears to hear God in the earthquake and in the fire, but the quiet seasons train your heart to hear Him in the whisper. That whisper becomes precious because it's in the whisper that God speaks most intimately, most personally. Silence sharpens your spiritual senses so that when God moves, you won't miss it. Another dimension of strength built in quiet seasons is discipline. When life is slow, when opportunities are few, when distractions are removed, God often calls you to practices you ignored before. Prayer, fasting, reading, reflection, self-control, stewardship. These disciplines become anchors in future seasons. When God blesses you with acceleration, abundance, and responsibility, the disciplines you developed in silence will keep you grounded. Without discipline, success can destroy you. But in the quiet, God trains you, shapes you, and fortifies you so that when the miracle manifests, you are strong enough to sustain it. Quiet seasons also strengthen your character. It's in the unseen seasons that God purifies your motives, refines your attitudes, confronts your pride, and heals your wounds. Character is shaped in the furnace of stillness. No audience, no applause, no spotlight, just you and God. He works on the parts of you that no one else sees because those are the parts that determine whether you can be trusted with destiny. God is not impressed by gifts. He is invested in character. He will not bless you publicly until he can trust you privately. In the quiet seasons, God strengthens your spiritual authority. Authority is not given to the loudest voices. It is given to the deepest ones. People with shallow faith cannot carry weight in the spirit, but people who have walked through silence with God emerge with a strength that cannot be faked, a confidence that cannot be shaken, and an authority that cannot be denied. They have been forged in silence, and silence strengthens in ways noise never can. Eventually, the quiet season ends. God begins to move again. Doors open. Opportunities appear. Prayers are answered. But when you step into that new season, you'll notice something. You are stronger. You are wiser. You are more stable. You no longer panic at delays. You no longer fear silence. You no longer crumble under pressure, because what God strengthened in you during the quiet is now carrying you into the next season. Quiet seasons are holy seasons. They are sacred seasons. They are strengthening seasons. When God brings you into silence, he is not abandoning you. He is equipping you. He is preparing you. He is developing you. He is fortifying everything inside you so that when he finally reveals the miracle he has been building, you will have the strength to carry it, protect it, and sustain it. So the next time you find yourself in a quiet season, don't despair. Don't interpret the silence as neglect. See it for what it truly is. God strengthening the parts of you that will soon be required. God reinforcing the foundation of who you are. God building capacities you don't yet know you need. The quiet is not empty. It is full of God's hands, God's work, God's shaping, and God's strength. And when you emerge from the silence, you will be stronger than you have ever been. There are moments in life when you're standing at the edge of a promise, praying for movement, waiting for doors to open, hoping for change, yet heaven seems quiet. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and you begin to feel like nothing is shifting. But what you must understand is that the delays of God, even the silent ones, are never denials. In fact, divine delays are often the breeding ground for supernatural acceleration. When God seems to slow things down, it is only because he is about to speed things up in a way that leaves no doubt that he alone orchestrated the breakthrough. God's timing may feel slow to us, but his timing is perfect, precise, and purposeful. He waits not to frustrate you, but to prepare you for a suddenly that will make sense of every moment you spent waiting. Divine delay is often misunderstood because we interpret time differently than God does. We look at the clock and panic. We see deadlines approaching and become anxious. We feel behind, forgotten, or overlooked. But God does not operate on human timelines. He is not pressured by your urgency or confused by your schedule. He sees what you do not see. He understands what you cannot comprehend. He delays not because he is unsure, but because he is deliberate. God delays when the blessing is ready, but you are not. He delays when the environment is not aligned. He delays when the road ahead still needs clearing. He delays when your character needs strengthening. He delays because he knows that premature blessings can become dangerous burdens. Acceleration only benefits you when you are prepared to handle it. A car that speeds too fast on weak tires is headed for disaster. A rocket launch with unstable parts will explode midair. A blessing given before its time can become a curse. So God delays you only to stabilize you. He withholds you only to prepare you. He pauses you only to strengthen your foundation so that when the acceleration comes, you will rise without breaking. The entire Bible is filled with divine delays that led to supernatural acceleration. Joseph waited in silence for years, betrayed, forgotten, imprisoned. It looked like delay after delay, setback after setback. But when God decided the moment had come, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in a single day. That is acceleration. Moses wandered in the wilderness for decades, hidden in obscurity. Yet once God released him, he led millions out of bondage with signs and wonders that shook nations. That is acceleration. David spent years running for his life while holding a prophecy no one believed. But when the time came, God elevated him to the throne instantly. That is acceleration. Delay is heaven's way of setting the stage for a breakthrough that happens so quickly, so powerfully, so undeniably that the only explanation is God. Divine delay builds something in you that will be required for the accelerated season ahead. First, it builds endurance. The delay stretches your capacity to wait without breaking. Waiting is not passive, it is spiritual discipline. It forces your faith to grow beyond feelings and emotions. It teaches you to stand firm even when circumstances do not match the promise. God will allow delays to strengthen your endurance so that when He accelerates your life, you won't crumble under the weight of the blessing. Delay also builds discernment. When you wait on God, you learn to distinguish between opportunities and assignments. You become sensitive to His leading, able to recognize His voice in a crowd of distractions. You stop running after every open door and instead wait for the door God opens. Discernment is forged in the silence, refined in the wait. Without discernment, acceleration could take you in the wrong direction. But with discernment, acceleration pushes you straight into destiny. Delay builds humility. You cannot take credit for a blessing you waited for. When God finally moves, you know it wasn't your strength, your genius, your connections, or your strategy that made it happen. It was purely God. Delay strips you of pride so that when you reach the promise, you will give God the glory. Humility is one of heaven's greatest foundations for elevation. God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. Delay softens your heart so that acceleration can rest on your life without destroying your soul. Delay builds gratitude. When God finally opens the door after a long silent season, you appreciate it differently. You value it more deeply. You protect it more carefully. You recognize the blessing as holy, sacred, divinely appointed. People who receive blessings too quickly often take them for granted, but those who endure divine delay cherish the manifestation with reverence. Gratitude is what keeps you grounded when acceleration lifts you higher than you ever imagined. Delay builds trust. When you cannot trace God, you learn to trust Him. When He says nothing, you lean into what He already said. When you feel stuck, you learn to rest. Trust is a muscle strengthened in the waiting room. Trust is what makes you unstoppable once acceleration begins. Because you know, beyond any feeling, that God keeps His word. That trust becomes the fuel that sustains you through the seasons of miracles that follow. But perhaps the greatest purpose of divine delay is alignment. God delays because He is aligning people, resources, timing, opportunities, and environments. He is aligning hearts, healing wounds, shifting atmospheres, preparing relationships, closing wrong doors, and opening right ones. You do not see all the moving parts, but God is orchestrating every detail. And when alignment is complete, acceleration begins. Suddenly, things that were stuck begin to flow. Things that were blocked begin to open. Things that were slow begin to speed up. What took years will happen in months. What took months will happen in days. What took days will happen in hours. That is the power of divine alignment. When acceleration comes, it will erase the pain of the wait. Blessings that come after delay carry a sweetness, a satisfaction, and a joy that immediate blessings cannot offer. When God finally moves, He moves so swiftly that your past disappointments will feel like distant memories. You will look back on the delay and realize it was not wasted time, it was preparation time. You will see that nothing was lost, everything was being arranged. You will understand that the delay was the setup, the refinement, the training ground for what you were destined to carry. God never delays without purpose. His delay is always connected to something greater, something that requires maturity, readiness, and alignment. When God delays, He is preparing you for a season of supernatural acceleration that will shock you. You won't inch into the next season. You will leap. You won't crawl through the door. You will be carried by grace. The same God who allowed the delay is the God who will release acceleration. And when it happens, you will know every quiet night, every unanswered prayer, every moment of frustration, every tear you cried in silence was working towards something magnificent. You'll say, God didn't delay me to deny me. He delayed me to deliver something bigger than I imagined, because when God accelerates, He doesn't just redeem time, He multiplies it. He restores it. He transforms it into glory. So if you are in a season where everything feels slow, stagnant, or silent, do not lose hope. Do not misinterpret the delay. Do not assume God has forgotten you. Divine delays are the runway for supernatural acceleration. And when God says, now, nothing can stop what He releases, not time, not people, not circumstances, not opposition. The delay was never the end. It was the beginning of something supernatural. And the acceleration that follows will prove that God's timing has always been perfect. There are seasons in life when God's silence feels like a wall, thick, impenetrable, and unmoving. You pray and hear nothing. You worship and feel nothing. You search your heart for sin, for error, for disobedience, but everything seems still. In that stillness, many people assume God's silence means God's distance. But the truth is, when God is silent, He is often preparing to speak through something greater than words, through outcomes, breakthroughs, transformations, and manifestations that speak louder than any sentence heaven could send. God speaks loudest through the results that silence has been shaping. God's silence is not the end of the conversation. It is the setup for a revelation. When God stops speaking, He often starts building. And when He finishes building, He speaks through the outcome. There are moments when a miracle communicates what your ears could never comprehend. A breakthrough can articulate what a prophecy could not capture. A turnaround can express what repeated instructions never would have taught you. God's silence is not speechlessness, but strategy. He chooses to speak through events, shifts, and manifestations that declare His power without Him uttering a word. Think of how many times God's loudest statements in Scripture were not spoken, they were revealed. The Red Sea parting was a message. The walls of Jericho falling were a message. The resurrection of Jesus Christ was a message. None of those moments needed heaven's commentary because the outcome itself was the announcement. When God is silent, often He is preparing an outcome that will testify on His behalf. Heaven builds in quiet what earth will one day shout about. God speaks through outcomes when you least expect it. You think nothing is moving, nothing is shifting, nothing is happening. You think your prayers have hit a ceiling. You feel like heaven has closed its doors. But while you are questioning, God is constructing. While you are waiting, God is working. While you are listening for a voice, God is preparing a result. And when the manifestation arrives, it becomes the voice you have been waiting for. Suddenly, everything makes sense. Suddenly, the silence becomes clear. Suddenly, you realize God was not ignoring you. He was orchestrating something much bigger than words. God uses outcomes to show you that His power is not limited to explanations. Sometimes God withholds words so that you will learn how to interpret His works. In the silence, you develop an ability to recognize His fingerprints. Even when He does not speak, you begin to understand that God is always active, always moving, always shaping your destiny. And when the outcome comes, you look back and realize the silence was evidence of deep divine activity. God also speaks through outcomes because words can be doubted, but results cannot. People can argue with a prophecy, but they cannot argue with a resurrection. People can debate your promise, but they cannot deny your breakthrough. People can question your faith, but they cannot question the doors God opens. When God speaks through outcomes, He silences the critics, confuses the enemy, and strengthens your faith all at once. The outcome becomes your sermon, your testimony, your evidence that God was present even when quiet. There are situations in your life right now where God is quiet, but the outcome is already in motion. You cannot see the process, but heaven has already begun the performance. You cannot hear the instruction, but the miracle is already forming. You cannot sense the movement, but the blessing is already aligning. God often chooses outcomes to speak because outcomes cannot be misunderstood. They cannot be misinterpreted. They communicate with clarity and authority. God speaks through outcomes when the lesson you need is deeper than a sentence. Sometimes instruction would not mature you the way experience does. There are truths you learn only through manifestation. For example, you can be told that God is a provider, but you do not truly understand it until He provides for you. You can be told that God is a healer, but the message becomes louder when He heals you. You can be told that God opens doors, but the truth hits differently when He opens one no man could close. God lets the outcome teach you because it becomes etched into your spirit in a way that spoken words never could. Outcomes also speak loudly because they reveal God's timing. When the manifestation comes, you see that the silence was not delay, it was synchronization. Everything needed to align the right people, the right moment, the right opportunity, the right environment. If God had spoken too soon or moved too early, the outcome would not have had the same impact. But when He waits until the perfect moment, the outcome speaks of His precision, His intentionality, His sovereignty. God speaks through outcomes when He wants to display His glory. Sometimes God cannot allow you to hear His plan because if you understood too early, you would try to take control. You would attempt to help Him, accelerate Him, or alter His timing. So He stays silent until the outcome is ready, and when it manifests, it becomes clear that it was all Him. The outcome eliminates the possibility of human credit. The outcome guards the glory. The outcome proves that the supernatural hand of God was working behind the scenes. God also speaks through outcomes because outcomes build others' faith. There are people connected to your miracle. When they see what God does for you, they believe He can do it for them. Your outcome becomes their encouragement. Your breakthrough becomes their confirmation. God uses your results to influence the faith of those watching. You endure your silent season. The silence may feel personal, but the outcome will be public. Many times, God's silence is preparing a testimony so powerful that it will change the course of someone else's life. That is why you cannot judge God's activity by your emotions. You cannot assume God is inactive simply because He is quiet. Silence is not inactivity. Silence is incubation. Your outcome is growing, forming, maturing, and when it bursts forth, it will speak with a volume that words could never achieve. Consider how a seed works. A seed grows in silence. You water it, but it does not speak. You tend the soil, but it says nothing. Days pass, then weeks, and still silence. But beneath the surface, roots are forming, strength is developing, life is expanding, and then one day, without warning, the seed breaks through the ground. That breakthrough speaks louder than any explanation the seed could have given. The outcome announces that growth was happening all along. In the same way, God lets your life develop unseen until the outcome becomes your announcement. So, if you are in a season of quiet, do not fear the silence. Do not misinterpret the lack of noise. Do not assume God is unavailable. The silence is strategic. The silence is sacred. The silence is shaping an outcome that will speak for God in a way that words never could. When heaven goes quiet, destiny gets loud. When God stops speaking, He is preparing to reveal. And when the outcome finally arrives, when the healing manifests, when the door opens, when the miracle unfolds, when the breakthrough breaks forth, it will speak with divine authority. It will tell your story. It will preach your sermon. It will reveal God's hand. It will testify of His faithfulness. It will silence your doubts. It will strengthen your spirit. It will prove that the silence was not God ignoring you. It was God preparing to reveal something too big to explain, something only an outcome could communicate. Your outcome is coming. And when it comes, it will speak louder than the silence ever did. When you step back and look over the landscape of your life, you begin to realize that everything God ever built in you was built in a season that made no sense at the time. Every breakthrough you ever received had a silent backstage where God was working the details. Every blessing that showed up suddenly was actually being formed slowly. Every door that swung open in your face was being carved in the quiet long before you ever touched the handle. And now you can look back at the seasons where you cried, "Lord, where are you?" and see that He was right there. shaping, strengthening, aligning, preparing, lifting, orchestrating, so that when the moment came, the miracle would not merely bless you, it would transform you. You realize now that silence is not God stepping away. It is God pulling you closer. Silence is not God ignoring you. It is God inviting you to trust Him on a deeper level. Silence is not punishment. It is positioning. Silence is not abandonment. It is alignment. Silence is not the evidence of defeat, it is the womb of victory. While you were questioning Him, He was equipping you. While you were pacing the floor, He was putting the pieces in place. While you were asking when, He was building the how. While you were crying over what you thought was delayed, He was preparing what would arrive right on time. I want you to understand that God does some of His best work without making a sound. Just because you can't hear Him doesn't mean He isn't speaking. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean He isn't producing. Just because you feel like your life is standing still doesn't mean heaven is standing still with you. God is always active, always present, always moving, even when the atmosphere around you is quiet. Faith must grow in the soil of silence. Trust must stretch in the tension of waiting. Maturity must rise in the seasons where feelings fail and only faith remains. Silence is the classroom where God teaches you how to stand when everything around you is shaking, and when the moment comes, oh yes, that moment always comes. When God reveals what He has been building behind the curtain of silence, you will understand why He said nothing. You will understand why He shut the door to some relationships. You will understand why He delayed some opportunities. You will understand why He let you walk through seasons that felt lonely, seasons that felt dark, seasons that felt empty. Because when the miracle manifests, when the blessing breaks forth, when the promise shows up full, grown, and undeniable, you will know that if God had spoken too soon, you would have moved too soon. If God had answered too early, you would have settled too early. If God had revealed too much, you would have relied on yourself instead of relying on Him. Silence was not punishment, it was protection. Silence was not rejection, it was redirection. Silence was not God holding something back from you, it was God holding something for you. And when He brings it forth, you will not say, did this. You will not say, I planned this. You will not say, I made this happen. You will say, this is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes, because the kind of miracle God builds in silence is the kind of miracle no man can take credit for. It is unmistakably His. So as you walk out of here today, I want you to shift your perspective. Do not curse your silent season. Honor it. Do not fear the quiet. Lean into it. Do not question the stillness. Trust it. Silence is not God's refusal. It is God's construction zone. It is where your character is built, where your faith is forged, where your roots grow deeper than your feelings, and where your future is carved by the very hand of God. You may not hear Him right now, but you will see what He was doing. You may not feel Him right now, but you will hold what He was forming. You may not understand Him right now, but you will testify about what He was shaping. Hold on, stay steady, keep trusting, keep believing. Your silent season is not the end of your story. It is the birthplace of your next miracle. God is too wise to be early, too intentional to be random, and too faithful to leave you where you are. When God is silent, He is not still. He is building something bigger, something better, something stronger, something tailor-made for your destiny. And when the silence breaks, when heaven finally speaks, when the miracle finally emerges, you will realize that every tear was worth it, every delay was divine, every quiet night was sacred, and every moment of uncertainty was actually God doing what God does best, working all things together for your good. So lift your head, dry your tears, square your shoulders, and get ready, because what God has been building in the silence is about to show up in your life, and it will change everything.